Hi, Corey. Just received your message from last Friday and just thought I would respond to it with a video just to elaborate on some of the key ideas and thinking for week three. So, week three on right and wrong. Um, Really, in this week, we kind of jump into the deep end much more than previous weeks, where we're looking at the trolley problem a little bit and measuring and reflecting on our responses to that. This week, a lot of the focus is around uh, the philosopher Immanuel Kant and his reasoning to support what's called a categorical imperative to our ethics in life. So, just going to talk to some of the tasks this week. So, the first task, really, it's a bit of a detour actually in the first task. In this one, we're looking at a really, really interesting argument from Plato's Euthyphro. Um, that's a text from Plato, and it poses a bit of a conundrum about uh, ethics based on a supernatural God. Um, I don't think this task is central to you for your learning this week. So if you wanted to skip activity one, it's more a really interesting detour and kind of gives a signpost into the history of thinking on right and wrong and how it's been embedded in Judeo-Christian tradition um, of the existence of God. So a lot of ethics and have been based on that. Uh, Plato outlines a bit of a problem for that, um, but I don't think it's central for Kant and our explorations of Kant. So, well, what is Kant and the categorical imperative? So, I suppose Kant uh, wants to give some reasonable grounds for our thinking on what's right and wrong. Um, so his focus, and I think this is really, really important for understanding this week and also week five coming around the corner. His focus is really on the motive of the individual, the intentions of the individual, rather than, say, for instance, looking at the consequences and the overall outcome of a particular moral decision. So he is definitely looking at what are the things that are motivating the ethical agent in their decision making, and we should be thinking about that when we're judging whether or not a decision is right or wrong. Okay, now he mentions it's a really kind of tongue twister word, categorical imperatives. These are basically formulations for universal and unconditional rules that we might aim for that are ethical in life. So there's a bit of detail on this. I guess the versions are very similar to each other. Okay. Um, the one that comes to mind, act only according to moral principles, which you can at the same time will or want to be binding laws for all rational beings. So Kant really comes up with this really quite technical justification for this. But essentially, it's saying, well, when acting in the world, um, you should only follow rules that you think could at the same time be binding for all other rational beings. So, for instance, it wouldn't be ethical according to this to treat other people as some means to some other end. So there's a distinction there, means to an end and an end in itself. And Kant is really saying that humans, rational beings particularly, those that have the capacity for reasoning, and they should be treated as ends in themselves. You can't treat another human being as some means to your own interests. And the reason why is because um, you should be acting according to the rules that you think should be binding for all citizens. So sometimes it's a kind of, um, you can see the influence of this from the saying, do unto others as you would wish to be done to you. So Kant is really kind of taking that sentiment, but trying to give a really technical formulation and justification for that. Okay, so in the second activity, I think it is, um, we're asked to return, I think, to the trolley problem a little bit and consider how Kant would respond to this. So, if it is that he's wishing to treat people as ends in themselves and not means to some other end, then using a person as using a person's life to save four other people's life is using that one person as a means to some other end. And really for Kant, that's not ethical. So his focus, as I mentioned before, is really on the motive and the intentions rather than looking at the consequences and the outcomes. Okay. So for Kant, in the trolley problem, he wouldn't flip the switch and definitely wouldn't push the fat, bulky person. Okay, now as I mentioned, there's a couple of variations of the categorical imperative, and they all have a similar flavor or a similar emphasis. And they're mostly rejiggings that Kant does in the course of his thinking about his ethical approach and philosophy. In the third activity here, you're asked to jump in and find a moral dilemma back from week 1 from a class member, and try to think how Kant might respond to this. And to do so, I think the emphasis should be on making the right decision, rather than looking towards outcomes. And it should also be based on treating rational agents, that's persons, as an end in themselves, rather than some means to some other end. It should also be thinking about universal rules, unconditional rules that can be willed as a universal for all humans. So act according to the maxim that you would wish as a universal for all humans. That is, in your response to this particular scenario that a class member has created, can your justification for the right decision, can that or should that be a universal for all? Can it be universalized? So for instance, if I go, this is a caricature, but if I go, I can, I can take things from my local shop, but all other people should not steal from my local Bunnings, then I'm clearly breaking Kant's categorical imperative. I'm acting in a different way than what I would wish as a universal. So it's almost like the rules are different just for me. For Kant, you can't do that. It needs to be universalized. Um, so this one is really putting your application of Kant um, and looking at other moral dilemmas that have been created. And then have a think, well, through doing this, you'll be thinking, okay, well, is he on the right track or is there some problems for this? And different scenarios and moral problems might bring out what are some problematic aspects of the Kantian approach to ethics. And in the last sections of week 3, it really digs into evaluations, so strengths and weaknesses of Kant and his approach, and then possible replies. So with lesson 3, and that goes into a bit more detail. So the level of thinking and engagement with the course really kind of increases there. And usually that happens at towards the end of each week, where we really dig into some details about working towards evaluations of a particular ethical approach. So that something from that that final section can then be the focus of your reflections. So was there some particular objection or strength or weakness or evaluation of Kant in all of your thinking this week that you thought was interesting? And that gives you room to unpack that a little bit, maybe even see how Kant might try and respond to that approach or offer some objections to it. Anyway, I hope you get something from this video. As I was saying, I just thought I'd just send you a video. Apologies that I haven't got back to you since Friday. I don't usually work on Monday, but if you have any further ideas or particular questions about particular aspects of this week, give us a hoy. Send an email or message, and we could perhaps talk about it in a video conference or something like that. Anyway, thanks, Corey. Thanks for listening. Adios for now.